Alright, back again. Finally got the TR-8 out of the box and connected up with the MX-1. So I have it personally just connected via single USB cable because with the IRA link, all the audio and everything passes right out through that. One thing I didn't really touch on in my last video was the I/O on the back here. So before I start, I just want to do a quick overview. We've got MIDI in and MIDI out. The MIDI out, I believe, can be switched to MIDI through software. SD card slot for your samples. Trigger out for triggering external devices for CV. We've got an external in left and right. And then we've got 8 assignable outs. I believe the mix out is also assignable. And then your phone's jack. So yeah, I never touched on that the last time, so I just wanted to cover that before we power this on. So this is the first time I'm turning this on. I haven't messed around with it at all yet, so here we go. So I guess the first pattern that comes up is Berlin Flavor. I quite like the colors of the faders. It's nice to be able to differentiate with your samples. So I'm just going to stop what's playing in the background, and we'll see what this first pattern sounds like. You can see it's running through the 8 variations. Not a whole lot going on here with this pattern. So let's see what we've got for our next one. Pattern select. Switch to Groovy Night. Pretty funky. So if you're wondering what I did there, I just used the manual trigger button to trigger. They have an autofill already set here, but if you hit the manual trigger at any time, you can trigger that. Be like a dual filter on this. Oh no. Oh yeah, it is. Okay. High pass in one direction, low pass in another direction. Now, Roland doesn't really give you any sort of key onto what they set these colors to specifically, at least from what I could tell from the little booklet that came with it. Let's start cutting some of these out, see what it sounds like. Obviously that's our kick. It's like a bass line in the background. So that's pretty cool. Let's move on to the next pattern. So that was Groovy Night. So check out, this is Sat-O Swing. Pattern 3 in the first grouping. And this, with the TR-8S, before I start, I just want to say, you get quite a lot of space for patterns now. Rather than just having 16, you've got 16 groups of let's see, up to, so it's 16 groups with 16 patterns within each group, which is awesome. So there's tons of room for creating kits and patterns, and everything is stored within the pattern, all the kits, all your sample selections that you have. So it makes it really easy for you to prepare for like a live show, and then just go in and immediately start your pattern and then dive right into performing, which is awesome. So this is Sato Swing. We'll see if there's anything set up for the autofill on this. Sounds like a scatter effect. That's pretty funky. So right away you can just see right out of the box there's quite a lot of differences between this and just the standard TR-8. I mean, the fact that you can produce whole bass lines and rhythmic synth sounds and other samples to kind of create like a more robust and in-depth beat is really awesome. So let's see if there's anything else in any of these other variations here. And I want to say that the buttons and everything, they feel great. There's no, you don't have to press very hard for them to activate, but everything feels nice and rigid and very well built. For anybody that is wondering about the build quality, all the knobs and everything feel really good, really like nice and tight. There's no looseness to them at all. All the faders are super nice. They've got a pretty nice bit of friction, or it's not the word I'm looking for, but they have a really nice tactile feel. They don't move too easily, but they don't move too hard. So in the case where you're using this for like a live show, you wouldn't have to worry about vibrations or anything kind of rattling these down. But at the same time, they move very nicely. Okay, so let's move on to the next pattern here. Sato Swing is the one that we just heard. So now we're going to Group 1, Pattern 4. This is called Tribal Nation. And just remember, I haven't played any of these. This is the first time I'm turning the machine on with you guys. Okay, so somebody was just asking if the 909 kit sounds as good as the TR-09 with the updated ACB. I actually haven't gotten into the kits yet, but I don't see why I couldn't do that. So let's scroll back and see what we've got here. 909 kit. Well, let's fix the pattern up a little bit. So I would say that the 909 to me sounds on par with the TR-09, and I mean really I don't see a whole lot of difference between that and the TR-8, to be quite honest. Yeah, so I mean, it sounds, as far as the 909 kick goes, I mean, it sounds pretty much bang on with what I believe. I mean, I had the TR-8. It sounds pretty much almost exactly like it. I mean, I would say I would be hard pressed to put all three machines together and really tell much of a difference. So I'd say that the updated ACB sounds pretty great on it. So I'm just going to get back to going through the demo patterns. So this one's called Riser and Riser. Kind of like a build up. Looks like the master effect is just some sort of overdrive circuit, or not even an overdrive, more just like a volume boost. And this particular pattern actually runs through all of the variations. Do the full build-up. Alright, moving on to pattern 6 in the first group. This is 32 bars trap. And one nice new feature about the TR-8S that I really think is awesome is being able the ability to do substeps. So you can do ratcheting rhythms without having to sort of set yourself into into 30 seconds instead of 16ths. So it's nice to be able to add ratcheting rhythms within the beat, rather than having to kind of work around with the step sequencer flying along, like the beat that was playing earlier. Just for example, the beat that was playing on this is on in 30 seconds. You see the step sequencer goes whizzing by. So, I mean, in the sense that it's easier to play in 16ths if you're going to be using the live pad, it's nice to be able to add ratcheting rhythms in afterwards without having to change the time signature of your beat. I've got the control knob set up on the kick drum here, where you can change the pitch on the fly in very coarse tuning. So you can bring it down. That's pretty sick. And also you can record those kinds of changes now with the motion controls, which I totally forgot about. So like, pretty sweet. That's awesome. And you can turn those motions off at any time, fire them back on whenever you want, and it will pick up right where it would have left off. Okay, so let's move on to the next pattern. So that was 32 bars trap, number 6 in the first group. So we gotta hit pattern select first, and then classic work. This is one that they used a lot within the demos, at least the demos that I saw prior to being able to actually have my hands on this thing. This is one that I heard a lot. So, let's see what we got here. So let's cut some of these sounds out. The flanger effect on the master effect here. I think it's being worked via the motion controls. I noticed it's turning itself on and off with the motion going. Absolutely. And this thing just sounds like, I know the cell phone camera probably isn't doing it any justice for you guys. I'll dial her down a little bit here. But this thing just sounds phenomenal. I mean, a lot of people had kind of knocked the videos before. I heard a lot of comments of people saying that it sounded like garbage. But seriously, listening to this through, I've got 8-inch monitors here. And like, this thing just sounds fantastic. Really high quality. I mean, it's obvious it's Roland used really high bitrate samples. I mean, it's hard for me to kind of get that point across. I wish I could have used direct audio for this so you guys could really hear like a better version of it. But yeah, just take my word for it. Like, it sounds fantastic. If you're thinking about getting one, like, so far, and I'm only touching this for the first time with you guys, but so far I'm pretty impressed just from what I'm hearing. So seems like changing the pitch of the sample almost changes the speed of it too. Like, it doesn't really time stretch. All right, so moving on. The next sample or next pattern that we're going to be looking at is number 8 in the first group, which is Sedgwick Avenue. So let's take a look and see what this sounds like then. Nice. Pretty funky little beat there. Not a whole lot. Let's see if we got any samples hidden under any of these faders. Some real raw, hard hitting kind of drums. I bet you slowed the pattern down on this, you could probably really get like an old school, like New York hip hop style vibe. That's at 100 BPM there. Oh yeah, that's funky as hell. Makes me want to start jamming. I'm gonna have to get the synths going. But that's fat, man. That's sick. Sick breakbeat. What do we got on the master effects? Something like a, that's like a overdrive distortion. Now, do we have anything hidden in these other patterns here? Of course we do. So we can chain them together by holding down one and then pressing the subsequent ones. Super easy to use, super intuitive. And I just love how Roland has put so much of the controls that you just want to be able to grab at, like right on the face of this thing. There's very little frigging around. I mean, I know that people would say that, yeah, you're going to spend time kind of uploading your samples and stuff into the machine, but typically, if you're going to do a live show, you kind of already have that stuff planned out. So I would hope that you would have the samples loaded into your patterns, saved, and ready to go for when you perform, rather than trying to load samples in live. Because, I mean, anybody can tell you that when you're trying to do something like that, it's pretty much going to result in a disaster. But they've just done a fantastic job of making everything very easy to access. The substeps, the motion controls, the ability to turn that on and off, and the ability to just have that sort of automate a lot of this controls, much like you would using like Ableton or Logic to automate the MIDI data for, you know, various options on your synths and such. All right, so moving on from that funky breakbeat, we're going to our next pattern, which is going to be the pattern select first. And this is Bay Area that we're going to be looking at now, so let's give her a shot. Kind of like a glitch hop type beat. See what we got hiding in these other four variations. So here we go. Wait for it to come around. All right, so let's move on to the next pattern, Kawi Future. Oh, that's nice. I love that little, that melodic roll. Start cutting out some of these sounds and just see what we got here. Okay, so I'm assuming this is going to be our kick, of course. Red seems to kind of indicate the kick drum stuff. Alright, now we'll cut out the snare. So that's like that's just a hand clap. That's our bass line. There's a lot of synth stuff going on in the background of this via the internal samples. Very cool. Tommy gun, I will definitely be updating. The firmware right away. I've already saw some of the bugs that people had out of the box. So everybody knows, this hasn't been updated yet. So that's literally on my list of the next things to do. I just wanted to get this video put up before I took the time to load the firmware into it and everything, which I know only takes a couple of minutes with Roland stuff anyway, so it's pretty good. But yes, Tommy gun, thanks for the suggestion, and I will definitely be doing that probably within the next couple hours. Bring it back. What a fantastic machine this is. Like, this has literally got everything that, when I bought the TR-8, everything that I wanted to see but wasn't in the TR-8 is essentially in this machine. The ability to play samples, the 8 variations within a pattern so that you can basically make full tracks within the pattern. Having the autofill and having the ability to use the scatter via the autofill. By down here, you can see where you can select your fill 1, your fill 2, or your scatter. But I mean, it just sounds fantastic. Like, it's unreal. All right, so let's see what some of these control knobs do, just to screw around with this. So let's isolate. We'll isolate at the kick. So this control knob doesn't really seem like it's assigned to anything. And then there's obviously our decay and tune. Yeah, so some of these controls don't really have anything assigned to them yet, it would seem, and at least within this pattern. That's a tune. Same thing with that. Coarse tuning. Oh, maybe I should look over at the screen. So used to the TR-8 not having one. This is a delay send change. Vox with our coarse tune on that, of course, which at the time doesn't matter right now, because if you make any changes to your control parameters that have already been automated through the motion, and the motion controls are on, it automatically, after like a second, basically just jumps back to wherever the automation was supposed to be. So if you wanted to, like for example, if you wanted to change the tuning of that note, you would actually have to shut the motion control off. And there's also, if you hold shift, you can see that there's an option for erasing that step. So now it's just going to repeat that same note because I've got the automation off. So if I wanted to, and then turn the motion back on. And so it's kind of cool how you could like mess with it live like that, turn your motion controls off, mess with the tuning a bit, kind of give it a little bit of a different sound, and then you can hammer the motion right back on again, and it jumps right back to what it was doing before with the automation, which is pretty sweet. Yeah, very cool. Can you do the rolls with the... I wonder if you can do the rolls with the touchpad. Of course you can. So you can do instrument play, and then the rolls that were given to us as an option on the TR-8 can also be used with the touchpad using pressure sensitivity too. So if I wanted to do like 16th rolls, I could hold down the 16th and then... So that's pretty sweet. I actually wasn't sure if the rolls would control the the pressure sensitive drum pad. So that's very cool. Okay, so before we switch out of this pattern, let's just see what's hiding in these other variations here. So we'll go a little melodic thing going in the background there now. Alright, so moving on, we're going to go to pattern 111, which is, let's see, this is called Forest Dance. So I'm just going to hit play and we'll see what happens. Weird like jazz flute thing going on in this like jungle drum kind of setting. Master effect in this case is set to a high pass filter, which you can see on the screen. Any of you jungle fans, there's clearly all kinds of plenty of options for that sort of thing. Rhythmic, tribal dance. Alright, so our next pattern is called loafing, and that is pattern 12 within group 1. And so let's see what she sounds like. Right now we're at 100 BPM if anyone is wondering. Bring up to 120. Band pass filter. Oh, that's cool. All right, so we're moving on. Try to get through some of these a little bit quicker. This one's called Funky Stroke. That's number 13 in Group 1. Very cool. So what do we have for Master Effect? Phaser. Very nice, and this one is actually using all 8 of the variations for the pattern. But I imagine if you wanted to, you could probably keep it in from like C and D, which would kind of be like a main beat. And then if you wanted to do like a breakdown or something, you could come into the end part. Which makes it like really awesome for doing live electronic shows, because you can have like a nice breakdown like this, and then you could build it back up into the rhythm. And then you could bring it into the main part. And then the breakdown. And if you have the MX1, you can also use some of the effects from this as well to kind of aid in that. Like if I wanted to say use the scatter effect from the MX1 and then jump back into the beat, I could be like, maybe with a little more grace than that, but you get the idea. Very cool. Okay, so moving on to our next pattern, we've got Synchro Funk. That's number 14 in the first group. So let's see what we got. Man, what a beast. So let's loop these two. We'll start cutting out some instruments. So the melodic stuff, the synth stuff, it seems to, at least in the Roland pattern, seems to be typically in the low, mid, and high tom section. I mean, obviously you can set them anywhere you want yourself. I'm just saying, as far as the Roland patterns go, this seems to be a pretty common thing. And sometimes they use a couple over at the end here too, like your crash cymbal and your ride cymbal. But in this case, it doesn't seem like there's any use to them. Let's just check it. Oh, a couple of spots. So yeah, so we'll bring it back. Show kind of the components that make it up. Nice ratcheting rhythm in there using the Substeps. And then you've got your synth samples. And also, I guess it should be said to anyone that hasn't really seen a lot of the other demo videos, because I know that some of these things have been touched on a lot with other people, but if you wanted to edit any one of these patterns while something's playing and you don't want it to trigger, like, which you couldn't really do on the TR-8, because as soon as you switch patterns, it would just start playing that pattern. New to the TR-8S, if you hold TR-rec and then touch the pattern you want to edit, you'll notice that it changes color and it flashes very quickly, which means we're in pattern C right now, but you know, we could edit it on the fly in a live scenario and have no issue with it, you know, sort of playing out while you're live on stage and making it kind of look like a fool. So just to show you, I just slammed a bunch of kicks in there, so it's probably not going to sound great, but when it gets to C, you'll hear it. But actually wasn't too bad. And I edited that while it was playing, so there was no issue there, which is awesome. Okay. So on to our next pattern. That was Synchro Funk 114. We're moving on to pattern select. Nocturnal Drum and Bass. So let's see what we've got here for D&B. Nice band pass filter, get some really like funky kind of let's see what I'm looking for here. Like a very glitchy. My camera battery's almost dead, so I would just want to get through some of these last patterns. Actually, we're on the second last pattern of the first group right now. But yeah, I just wanted to give you guys kind of an overview of what you'd be looking at if you were, you know, in the market of purchasing one of these bad boys. I mean, I've been waiting for like a month and a half to get mine. I pretty much harassed Roland and Long McQuade over and over again until they put it in their system, ordered it, and then because there was such a demand on it, Jody, the tempo can switch with patterns. The only reason that it's sounding the same, yeah, and it is really slow for drum and bass. The only reason that it's sounding the same is because right now it's synchronized to my MX1's tempo. So if I wanted to, I could jank it right up to. But as far as the TR-8S goes, it actually stores the tempo of the pattern within itself per pattern. So I guess it would all depend. Like if you were going to do a drum and bass show, you would have it synced with something that produces whatever between 150 and 170 BPM. But if you were just using the TR-8S by itself in a live scenario, then the tempo carries over, and there's actually a tempo knob here, and this display would actually have the tempo of the pattern listed on it. Yeah, it's just because all my gear is synced together via MIDI and USB right now. Like all of my synthesizers and everything are all linked to the tempo clock from the MX1. Yeah, we can get some of that transient effects in there too. Or I mean band pass, sorry. Now there's some other patterns here that aren't unveiled, so I'm just wondering, let's see what we've got in here. Let's get the whole chain going. Right now I'm triggering a manual autofill-in. Okay, before my camera dies, I just want to get to the last pattern, so I'm going to just knock the BPM back down to around 120 because I don't really know what the next pattern is. This is my first time turning the thing on. So let's see what we've got here. Indicicid, I'm not really sure. I'm probably pronouncing that totally wrong, but let's see what we got anyway. High pass filter on the master effect. Change the compression of the bass drum with that control, the reverb on the send on the snare. Yeah, so that's the entire whole first group of patterns that comes on the machine right out of the box. Like I said, this is my first time turning it on, so I wouldn't be surprised if I said some things wrong or used incorrect terms. If so, then I apologize. But hopefully that gives you guys an idea of what you're getting into. I just want to say before I sign off that this thing sounds phenomenal. The controls are, like I've said a few times throughout the stream, they're extremely ready for you. They're extremely easy to access. Everything is very easily read on the display, which is nice because the TR-8 never had one. And yeah, all these colors and stuff are customizable for your own patterns, samples, and as well as all the control knobs that cover that as well. Thanks for watching, and if you guys have any questions that didn't get covered in the video, feel free to post them in the comments, and I will do my best to reply to everybody. Thank you very much, and I'll also be probably doing one more video where I do a totally blank pattern. I'll load in some of my own samples, I'll show how the samples get loaded in, and just kind of show the workflow starting from scratch. Thank you very much, and everybody have a nice day.